There are stories in the Qur'an that almost no one speaks about. Stories that don't appear in children's books or in casual conversations, but stories that carry a weight so heavy that Allah swore by them in His book. One of those stories is the tale of Ashab al-Ukhdud, the people of the fire pit. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing content. A people burned alive. Men, women, even children, their only crime being that they believed in Allah, the one without partner. Allah mentions them in Surah Al-Buruj. Cursed were the people of the ditch, of the fire supplied with fuel when they were sitting beside it, and they, to what they were doing against the believers, were witnesses, and they resented them not except because they believed in Allah, the exalted in might, the praiseworthy. These verses paint a scene more chilling than any film. Imagine massive trenches dug into the ground, fires roaring inside them, the crackling of flames filling the air, and rows of innocent believers being dragged one by one to be thrown into those flames, not because they committed crimes, not because they harmed anyone, but because they declared, "My Lord is Allah." The tyrant king of that time could not bear the existence of people who rejected his false gods and idols. He wanted control, obedience, and submission. But the faith of these believers was stronger than fear, and so he devised a punishment so brutal that it would terrify others into renouncing their belief. And yet, what happened was the opposite. The story preserved in hadith tells us that among those dragged to the pit was a woman carrying her infant child. As she stood at the edge, her heart wavered, not for herself, but for her baby. The fire roared, the soldiers pushed, and in that moment of hesitation, Allah caused the child to speak. The baby said, "Be patient, mother, you are upon the truth." And with that, she stepped forward, and both entered the fire, their souls carried to Jannah. This detail reminds us of something profound. The miracle of Allah's support comes in the darkest moments, when the test feels unbearable. Now think about this. The tyrants sat beside the pit, watching, enjoying, mocking. They fueled the fire higher and forced others to watch. It was not just murder. It was a spectacle, an attempt to humiliate those who dared to defy falsehood. But in Allah's eyes, the outcome was the opposite. The tyrants were cursed, and the believers became martyrs, their story preserved forever, their sacrifice turned into eternal honor. And here's the frightening reality. The Qur'an doesn't tell us this story to shock us. It tells us because history repeats itself. From pharaohs who killed the children of Banu Israel to modern tyrants who imprison, torture, and burn entire villages of Muslims alive, the story of Ashab al-Ukhdud lives on. Yet the lesson is not only for them, it is for us. Would we have stood firm at the edge of the fire? Would we have risked our lives, our children, our comfort for Allah? Or would we have bowed to the tyrant, telling ourselves, it's just one compromise, just one word, just for survival? The people of the pit chose differently. They chose faith over fire. They chose eternity over survival. And for that, Allah elevated them forever in His book. To truly understand the story of Ashab al-Ukhdud, we need to go back to the beginning of the chain of events that led an entire nation to witness the fire. The Prophet, peace be upon him, narrated to us the backstory in the famous hadith of the boy and the king. It begins with a tyrant king who ruled with arrogance, claiming powers only Allah possesses. In his court, he had a sorcerer, a man who maintained the king's control over the people through illusions and falsehood. But when the sorcerer grew old, he said to the king, "Bring me a young boy so that I may teach him my magic and he may take my place after me." The king agreed, and a boy was chosen, but Allah had a different plan. On the boy's way to learn magic, he encountered a righteous monk, a worshipper upon the truth of Tawheed. The boy began to spend time with him, learning about Allah, hearing words of truth that pierced his heart. So the boy found himself between two paths. The path of the sorcerer and the path of the monk, one calling him to serve the king's illusions, the other calling him to serve Allah alone. Allah gave the boy a sign. One day, a huge beast blocked the road, and the people could not pass. The boy picked up a stone and prayed, "O Allah, if the monk's way is dearer to you than the way of the sorcerer, then kill this beast with this stone." He threw it, and the beast fell dead. The road was cleared, and the boy knew the truth. The monk's path was the path of Allah. From then on, Allah blessed the boy with miracles. He healed the blind, he cured the sick. He helped the people with Allah's permission. Word spread across the kingdom, and faith began to awaken in the hearts of the people. But news reached the king, a boy challenging his authority, performing miracles the sorcerer never could. The king became furious. He arrested the monk and demanded that the boy abandon his faith. The monk refused, and he was killed. The boy was ordered to be executed, but every attempt failed. Soldiers threw him from a mountain, but he walked back unharmed. They tried to drown him in the sea, but he returned safely. Every plot failed, and the king's power looked weaker by the day. Finally, the boy himself told the king how to kill him. He said, "You will not be able to kill me until you do what I command. Take me to an open field, gather the people, tie me to a tree, take an arrow from my quiver, place it in the bow, and say, 'In the name of Allah, the Lord of the boy,' then shoot me, and you will kill me," desperate to end this. The king followed his instructions. The arrow was loosed, and it struck the boy. His soul departed, and he became a martyr. But something incredible happened. The people cried out with one voice, "We believe in the Lord of the boy." The king was horrified. He had tried to crush faith, but instead the boy's death lit it like fire across the land. Every tongue now declared belief in Allah. His power was slipping through his fingers, and so he ordered the trenches to be dug, massive pits filled with fire, flames blazing high, and every man, woman, and child who refused to renounce their faith was dragged and thrown into those flames. That was Ashab al-Ukhdud. Their story begins with one boy, a monk, a beast on the road, and ends with fire pits filled with martyrs. A tale of sacrifice that still burns as a warning and as an honor in the pages of the Qur'an. So why did Allah preserve the story of Ashab al-Ukhdud? Why mention their flames in Surah al-Buruj? Why curse their killers? And why honor their martyrs for eternity? Because this story is not locked in history. It is a warning, a reminder, and a mirror for every generation. Think about it. The people of the pit were not kings or prophets. They were ordinary believers, mothers, fathers, children, merchants, farmers, neighbors, people like you and me. But when the moment of truth came, they stood firm. They were asked, "Will you deny Allah, or will you burn?" And they chose to burn. This is the weight of Allah. It's not just a phrase on the tongue. It's not just an identity on paper. It's a declaration worth dying for. And the Quran asks us silently, if fire was placed before you, would you stand with them? It also teaches us that tyrants, no matter how powerful, cannot extinguish Iman. The king thought he could control belief, that by killing the monk, by trying to silence the boy, by building pits of fire, he could erase Tawhid from the hearts of people. But the opposite happened. The boy's death spread faith to the whole nation. The fire only purified the believers and cursed the oppressors. That is the sunnah of Allah in history. Pharaoh drowned. While Musa was saved, Namrud perished. While Ibrahim was lifted, the king of the fire pits is gone, nameless, forgotten, while the martyrs are remembered in every recitation of Surah al-Buruj. There is another lesson too. Sometimes Allah does not save his believers from death. Sometimes he saves them through death. He did not put out the fire for Ashab al-Ukhdud. As he did for Ibrahim, he allowed them to burn, but their souls entered Jannah immediately, and their sacrifice became immortal. This reminds us, the real victory is not survival in dunya, it's success in Akhirah. And here is where it touches us directly. Most of us will not face fire pits, but we face daily choices between faith and comfort, between prayer and distraction, between truth and silence. Every day is a smaller version of that test. When friends laugh at Islam, do you speak or stay quiet? When your boss pressures you to compromise your faith, do you bend or stand tall? When your desires call you away from Allah, do you give in or do you resist? The people of the pit were willing to give everything. What about us, when we can't even give up a few minutes for Salah, or a few harem clicks for Allah's pleasure? This story is also a call to courage. The boy was only a child, yet his faith shook a kingdom. Never think you are too small to make a difference. A single believer, firm in his conviction, is more powerful than armies of tyrants. The boy died, but his shahada lit the flame of Iman in an entire nation. That is the power of sincerity. So the next time you recite Surah Al-Buruj, pause on those verses, see the flames, hear the cries, feel the strength of those martyrs, and remind yourself their blood was not spilled in vain. It was recorded by Allah, preserved in His eternal book, so that when you face your own tests, big or small, you remember them. And you choose Jannah over dunya, faith over fear, Allah over everything else, because in the end, the pits of fire will turn to dust, the tyrants will stand humiliated, and the believers, those who chose Allah no matter the cost, will rise from the ashes into gardens beneath which rivers flow. That is the legacy of Ashab al-Ukhdud, not forgotten, but honored forever. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing content.